are the best PvP kits that you need to start using in Roblox Bed Wars. Also consider subscribing. Now for the first kit, we have the Shaleia kit. Now, if you don't know what this kit does, basically you have an egg that floats around you at the start of the game, and when you start dealing some damage and start eliminating some people, you get a seahorse that can heal you and deal damage to people. Now, this kit is an amazing all-round PvP kit because it heals you and does passive damage to your opponents. If you're playing something like squads or solos, it's really good for getting that damage in and helping you getting that final kill. And when you get even more kills, it becomes even more powerful and even more useful for stuff like late game and early game. It's also pretty good at the middle of the game as well. When sort of at that iron armor stage, you can do a ton of damage to people. This kit really shines when you're doing PvP battles in something like squads because it helps you tackle those opponents one by one whilst healing you. It's also really good with any weapon at all. It doesn't matter if you like using the regular sword, the dagger, the hammer, the scythe. It's really good with any weapon. This kit is pretty good and I would recommend picking it up if you have the opportunity to. For the next kit, we have the Trinity kit, which is an unexpected kit on this list. But if you don't know what this kit does, after you get 3 eliminations, you can choose between the Void and the Light Angel. And in this video, we're going to be talking about the Void Angel. Now, similar to the last kit, it is kind of an alternative, but when you deal damage, you get some health back. But what makes this kit really good is the type of combos that you can combine with this kit. Similar to the last kit on this list, it's pretty good for healing you while you deal damage, but you can also get the Execute enchant, and once you eliminate someone, no matter how low you are, you get right back to full HP, which is really overpowered. It's good for any game mode as well. It's pretty good for ranked, it's pretty good for solos and squads as well, but you do have to get those 3 kills or this kit's gonna do absolutely nothing for you. It's also really good with any weapon, including range, so if you do like to use the bow from time to time or the crossbow, it's also really good for that as well. And as I mentioned earlier, it's really overpowered when paired with a few different combos like the Lifesteal enchant and the Execute enchant. Me personally, I like to use the Lifesteal enchant because I can stack up even more health and become pretty much unkillable as long as I'm dealing damage to people. It's also really good when fending off squads because you do get that health back when you deal damage, especially if you have a really good sword and really good armor, and if you're fighting multiple people, you can get that health advantage and that gear advantage at the same time. You're not going to have to focus on your health too much because you're sitting there dealing a ton of damage to people. And of course, the healing effect scales with the amount of damage that you do. So if you get a really good sword, expect to heal a bunch more as well, which is why I've put this kit on this list. It may seem like a pretty old one, but it's still really good. For the next kit, we have the Kalia kit, which is our first battle pass kit. Now, if you don't know what this kit does, it's a pretty interesting one. After you deal a little bit of damage to someone, you get a prompt to pretty much punch them. Give them a nice sucker punch them in the stomach, and they light on fire. This kit is really good for dealing nice quick damage at the start of the game, and if you're looking for a kit that you can use right away, I would definitely recommend this kit, especially if you're looking into getting into a ton of PvP fights right at the beginning of the game. It also gives the fire enchant effect, which is really powerful at the start of the game because you get a few ticks of extra damage. And if you pair this with other enchants like lifesteal, static, or even fire, you can make this sucker punch even more powerful, which I think is very overpowered. It can also push people into the void, so if you're playing on a really small condensed map and you use the ability, you can just throw people into the void, which is why it is really good for fending off people with better gear than you. It's not too great for stuff like squads because you can only use the ability on one person at a time, but not too great for squads or ranked. It doesn't give many late game benefits though, since it doesn't do a crazy amount of damage, so I would keep that in mind before using this kit. Overall, it's a pretty solid kit, probably not as good as the next kit on this list, which is the Grim Reaper kit. Now, of course, this is an amazing safe option when you're starting out playing Bed Wars. This kit is absolutely amazing. If you don't know what this kit does, when you eliminate someone, you get a prompt to consume their soul. And when you do consume their soul, you gain some speed and you start healing up. Although you can't break any blocks and you can't attack people. You need to keep that in mind before using this kit. But what this kit does really well at is in solos, when you rush your opponent, if you win the first PvP fight, you can start breaking their bed, and once they respawn, you can actually consume the soul and run away, or you can just get ready to fight them again. And if you're just starting out at Bed Wars, it's not too difficult to get the hang of. It's a really nice, safe PvP kit option if you're looking for something that's really solid and will never get nerfed. And of course, the Grim Reaper kit is probably the longest lasting kit in Bed Wars, and what I mean by that is that it's good with every single meta. Ever since it released in like season 1 or 2 up until season 8, this kit has shined throughout all of the seasons and never been a bad kit. This kit also isn't that complicated to learn. You can probably pick this kit up and start using it probably right away. Like, you don't need to be really good at the game to use this kit. And speaking of kits, you guys are probably wondering, how can I get my hands on some of these kits? Well, that's where I come in. If you guys are early to this video and my next video, put your username down in the comments and I'm giving people that are early to my videos a free kit. So if you are early to this video and my next video, drop your username and the kit you want in the comment section below and I'll slide you guys a kit. And of course, if you want to be early to some of my next videos and get a kit for yourself, make sure you subscribe, like the video, and drop the notification bell on so you don't miss out on a chance to get a free kit. And for the next kit, guys, we have the Zephyr kit. This is actually one of my personal favorite kits that I use all the time. If you don't know what the Zephyr kit does, it's actually kind of a complicated kit. Basically, whenever you get a kill, you get like a feather sort of ability, which lets you deal more damage, gives you speed, and when you max out its ability, it gives you a double jump ability. However, in my opinion, it's better than the Ares kit, which is the rival of the Zephyr kit. These kits released at the same time, 2 different seasons, but at roughly the same time. And in my opinion, I think the Zephyr outrules the Ares kit. It's a lot easier to use, and there are more benefits to using it. The Zephyr kit is also a really easy kit to use, and once you do end up eliminating someone and eliminating a lot of people at once, it gets really overpowered and becomes really good in early game PvP advantages. And for the next kit, we have the Caitlyn kit. Now, this is a pretty new kit. It only came out last season, and it's pretty good for passive damage. If you don't know what this kit does, basically you start off with an ability that gives you passive damage, and then you are assigned different contracts, and then once you complete the contracts, you get an even stronger passive ability. Now, of course, as I mentioned, it's really good for passive damage, and it can be upgraded over time with the contract. And depending on what kind of contracts you get, they can be easy, they can be hard, but most of the time they're pretty easy to complete. And if you're playing something like ranked, it's really powerful because there is only one other team that you go against. This kit kind of reminds me of the Bounty Hunter, except you kind of keep the extra buffs that you get, so it makes the Caitlyn kit really overpowered, especially for late game as well, because once a contract starts stacking up, and if you get a lot of kills and complete a lot of contracts, you start having a really powerful passive ability. I should also mention that this passive ability does apply to every single weapon type, whether that be ranged, melee, or anything else of the sort. It applies to everything, which is why I prefer the Caitlyn kit over some of the other kits on this list.